we talk a lot with, our logic brain and our limbic brain. And that's where so many people, get confused because again, if we go biopsychosocial, you're welcome, college kids, because it is 3-part, and that's the thing. Yes, there is a biology to it. Absolutely. And even when you were talking about that, some of my male clients, low testosterone. We were talking about estrogen and hormone. Right. Women going through menopause and they're like, I feel crazy. I'm like, as you should.
And look at all the symptoms that's added to that. Like if you look, okay, now you're depressed. Now you can't, so yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm like, you shouldn't be feeling good right now. And the fact that you even made it here, dude, let's give you some nugs, man.
And then just think about the generation too, like the Generation X and stuff. Like we're taught like, okay, you can't, if you're a man, you got to be a man.
Yep, you can't feel anything.
No, you can't feel anything. You can't be, if you're a woman, you got to have your shit all together, even in your 50s. And it's like, hello. I mean, but the thing is that we can't help our hormones. We got to be able to look at that. And then men too, like they have a lot of pressure. Like there's these like great songs that like artists are coming out with, and I can't think of the name. Brandon was here, he would know. But it's about like the amount of like bricks and stuff that are on the men's back that like is completely like disregarded. And then men don't come to therapy and they don't ask for help because they feel like they're not a man if they ask for help. And it's like, no, I love seeing men come to therapy. I love seeing grown-ass men, like 40s. Like I've had like, professional baseball players come. I've had like firefighters. I've had grown husbands. Like you would see them walking thinking they have all their shit together and they're just like this perfect man. And it's like, no, they're a human too, and they're going through their own shit, midlife crisis,
and
or whatever.
And they, and they have every right to feel the way they feel.
Absolutely.
I share with my male clients. I'm like, I know, I don't have brothers, but I have male first cousins, and I remember growing up with them, and all you hear is, oh, you're a punk, or you're a sissy, get your stuff together. Men don't cry. Girl, you're crying, you're acting like a girl, and all of these different things piled on them, and that is how they think. And so, they hide their anger, or they do things that because they're not allowed to express themselves. And so I teach my clients, like my male clients, look, it's okay if you need to cry in here, go ahead. I got tissue. Let's get it out, because what's in you has been hurting you. And it's manifested in different areas. So let's do a treatment plan. Let's try to, resolve some of the things that you're dealing with so that you can show up and become a better version of yourself.
Well, even with that, and it's funny because, and again, we're, talking about our dudes, which guys, girl, and even like I said, being a single mom, all this stuff, I relate very well to guys, not just as an athlete, but being the head of household, having all the responsibilities, working 2-3 jobs. Never being able to
raising a boy,
and my 2 other ones, but also everybody, that was dying and being sick, and it was all came out on me. And so even I know what it was like to walk in the house and everybody's kind of like, can I just take a breath?
Pressure,
And so when I tell my men that, they're looking at me like, okay. And then I say, I go, listen, I go, dude, I know emotions weren't even invented. Like we weren't allowed to do anything. We were grown at 7. And I said, but here's the thing, anger is never even a true emotion anyway. I said, but here's the thing. When was the last time you ever felt emotionally safe?
Never.
They don't even know what that means.
No.
And I said, here's the thing. Whatever it works, whatever it's going to be, I said, because it's not about me. It's about you. I said, but then I had this one young kid who was somebody else was way back before I was here. Beautiful kid, tall, just you look at him and he was like, I don't even know what's wrong with me, because every time I come in, I sit on that couch, I'm sitting right there. I already know I don't even cry for anything. And I'm just like,
he just starts crying right away.
Oh my God.
Crying chair.
And here's the thing. And clients, how many of y'all have had said, I knew I was coming to see you today, and they feel safe. And I said, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about. Like when I go, yo girl, shut the door, what's going on? And we do that very well is because we know with each other, we are emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And there's so many times that we haven't.
I was just going to say that. I think this is one of the first times, being around, a group of women that I felt the safest,
That's correct.
So yeah, you're right.
Because when they're competitive,
Yeah.
And I love saying compare, and compare a lot of insecurities and always, I'm going to get mine. It's pretty bad, actually. you know?
Yeah, that's why we got to change that though. And you know, we're I think a lot more selective of who we bring in now, and like I said, a lot of growth, and I look forward to seeing all the great things that we do. Now we're doing a lot of stuff in wellness and health, and you know, integrating that, because like we were just talking about, like hormones and getting older and our metabolism slowing down and all that stuff. And so really thinking about everything as a whole, how you're sleeping. I mean, everything, things that you put in your body. Even sleeping. Since I've become certified, I'm like really looking at the back of labels now, even more than I was before. Like just everything is like, you know, just very important all around. And
well, and I'm going to kind of pull back a little bit, because what's happening, and again, I'm like, did I teach all this stuff today? I really did. Our young people, I say, y'all are the researchers. They have more information at their fingertips, and who are they asking? You know, they're like, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? What about this? And nobody's got any answers for them. And so that's what I said. The fact that we are not afraid to go, listen, if I don't have the answer for it right now, you give me 2 minutes, I'm going to go find it.
Yeah.
That's what I think has not been happening for a long time too. Everybody got real, just like, nope, hands off.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to.
You meet the check marks of this, so this is what we're doing. We're putting that in a box.
And then you pass it.
Yeah.
So nobody has any accountability.
Absolutely.
Because they're too afraid of, you know, and that's change. I mean, you just listen, there's no fear. Let's go. Balls out. Like, I mean, you know, and that's what I'm saying. When you get to go in there and just say, hey, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, people say all the time, even like athletes, they're like, oh, well, I'm nervous about this. I said, that's all right, because I'm a good coach. We're going to be fine. And I just walk away, and they're like, oh, am I supposed to fall? Okay. Yeah. Because I'm just like, but you got to, you know, you got to do that.
That's a part of building the rapport or building a relationship with your clients. Because before you can do anything, you got to build a relationship.
Foundation.
Right? So when you make them feel comfortable, when you make them feel safe, when you make them feel, hey, I can discuss it. Because I had a client tell me, he was like, I don't know. He goes, it's something about this room. Like every time I sit here, like I just feel like I could just pour out and tell you everything. I'm standing back in my mind like, don't tell me everything. Don't tell me everything. But tell me everything.
Yeah.
But it's just something about the atmosphere like that you set, that we set in our sessions, that people feel like, hey, I can just tell you everything, like my whole life.
And that's good, because that means we're not, they're not feeling judged, they're feeling heard. And maybe it's the first time in a long time that they're feeling that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I really believe, and I know just personally, I strive so hard to be a person of excellence in everything. I do not lie. I do not placate. And, you know, I try not to judge, because that's the thing, you know, people that judge themselves judge everybody else, you know, because that is, you know, they see people the way they see themselves. And, you know, all of us have been through that. All of us have been, and how come this happened to me? You know, oh my gosh, you know, and it's always like, why me? Now I'm like, okay, why not me at this point? Like, because I am strong. It's supposed to be me. And it's not even about me. It's so that then, you know, like we were talking the other day about purpose. And, you know, I'm doing the academic assessments, and TJ and I were talking about something, and she was just like, man. And I said, because I've been living it my whole life, you know, and myself and my son, and teaching and advocating and understanding. And so now when I have these, you know, I work with a lot of the, you know, the neurodivergent community, and just the processing and understanding that. And for the first time, and I get it now, they come in and I go, okay, so anyway, and I just start throwing stuff, and they just, like, you can just see them going, it's the first thing that's ever made sense to me in my life. And I go, all right, we're going to have a good time. And they're just like, who are you? I'm you.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I said, I'm you.
But see, that's what makes you connect so well with your clients. And one thing you said at the very, very beginning, and it was funny because it actually was brought up today at our event that we went to. You said physical education saved your life. That part of you, that is like, it's ingrained in you. Like, I know you run like a maniac, you cycle, you do all this crazy stuff, which I wish I had as much energy as you. However, I think about it and I'm like, that is what we were talking about earlier. Like, it saves kids' lives. And that's why the whole wellness and everything was like, get active, or get your kids active, have them do something, because it can save their life. My daughter she said, she'll tell you now, she's almost 18 years old. And she said, I don't know. I don't think I would be where I am today without cheer. It actually gives me chills just thinking about it, because
Me too.
her being a cheerleader has changed her life and saved her. She said it. Because while she was going through, the terrible things when she was younger with divorce and all that stuff, like, that is what kept her going.